484.
Okay, we are on page 1060. 1060. In Parshah of Ki Teitzei, we're doing mitzvot in the Torah, 613 mitzvot. We are on a positive commandment. Pasuk not Yud Dalet, next Pasuk Tetvav. Chapter Chav Dalet, Pasuk Tetvav in Sefer Devarim, Parshah of Ki Teitzei. Beyomo titen secharo, which means in his day you should give his wage. The pasuk before says that if you have a worker working for you, make sure you don't cheat him. And this pasuk says not only you're not allowed to cheat him, which means pay him less or not pay him at all. Even if you're paying him correctly, you're paying him exact amount, but you're delaying it, that's already a transgression. So we have a positive commandment, B'yomot titen scharo, and the mitzvah is pay your worker on time.
Even the goy.
Yeah. And what are the parameters of it? That if he worked for you during the day, you have to give him his salary the same day. You cannot say, I'll give it to you another day, I'll give it to you next week, unless you really don't have money. So, let's say your worker finishes, he worked for you the whole day, then you have the night to pay him. If you don't pay him by the morning, you transgress this positive commandment. And if employer is not able to pay for some reason, he has to speak to the worker beforehand and to tell him, please work for me today, but I will not be able to pay you today because I don't have money or whatever reason. If the worker agrees, then it's permissible to delay. But if the worker either doesn't know or he doesn't agree or you have money, you transgress this mitzvah, right? If you really don't have money, you don't transgress. So pay your worker on time.
So if you have an agreement to pay every 2 weeks.
Yes, yeah, whatever the agreement is. If it's daily, you have to pay daily. If it's weekly. If it's bi-weekly or monthly, you have to pay, cannot delay. And if you have to delay, you have to inform him and ask him forgiveness, ask him to please wait, ask him for his agreement. Now we have a negative commandment in Pasuk Teitzei. First 5 words of the Pasuk, Lo yumtu avot al banim. It's read, Lo yumtu avot al banim. The simple meaning is that Hashem judges each person for his merits and for his sins. He doesn't punish the children for the sins of the parents. And the same thing for merits, right? That you cannot say, oh, my father was religious, so I don't have to be, or my grandfather was a rabbi. It doesn't work. You have to be an observant person as well. Another meaning of it is, and this is the one that we're going to use for mitzvah, is that the translation is Lo yumtu avot al banim. The fathers should not die because of the sons, and the sons should not die because of the fathers. The mitzvah is that a father cannot be put to death based on the testimony of his son, or the son cannot be put to death based on the testimony of his father. So the mitzvah is that a relative is not allowed to testify in court.
That's all right.
Yeah, that's the negative commandment. A relative may not testify in court. We know that one of the witnesses that are not valid in court are relatives. That's why by chuppah, for example, you need two witnesses, but you have to find out if these two witnesses are related to either Hatan or the Kala.
So if my sister getting married, sorry, I couldn't have been a witness.
Yeah, you cannot be a witness.
Can the two witnesses be relatives to each other?
And that's a good point, and witnesses cannot even be relatives to each other. So,
Interesting.
so the rabbi who is doing the chuppah, he has to make sure that the two witnesses are not related to each other, they're not related to Hatan, and none of them are related to Kala. And if the rabbi forgot, or he doesn't know, let's say he asked, are you relatives? They said no. But let's say you know that they're relatives. You have a responsibility to come and say, no, you are cousins, or you are uncle and nephew.
So what do you do later? Like, as we clients can dig, and later found out that we somehow related. You have to change.
Yeah, there is a limit. There is a limit of how far you go, and it's a problem.
So that means you have to rewrite the ketubah.
You would have to, yeah. If the relationship was close enough, the
Talking about
rules
six cousins.
about 6 cousins is okay, but
Yeah, so how close of a relatives are we talking
there are
about?
rules, and it's a little bit advanced, but there are rules, and the rabbi who is doing the chuppah is supposed to know the rules of closeness.
Okay.
What relatives, how far they are distant from you, from your father, from your mother, from your sister, how far they can be to be
Another
close.
question, maybe something else connected, but it's come a little bit off topic. How many types of ketubah are there altogether? 10?
How many different types?
Yeah,
Ketubot?
yeah. There's like second marriages, first marriages, this, that, and this thing.
Not so much, not 10, but maybe 5, maybe 6, yeah.
Okay.
Different kinds of ketubah for different circumstances. Okay, so here we write, a relative may not testify. A relative may not testify, may not be witness. Next, Pasuk Yud Zayin, we have another negative commandment.
No.
And in fact, we have 2 negative commandments in the same Pasuk. The first one is, Lo tatem mishpat ger yatom. Do not, I'm just translating. Do not, we highlight, Lo tatem mishpat ger yatom. Do not twist or do not pervert the judgment of either a convert or an orphan. These are 2 examples of people who may be weak, who might not be able to defend themselves, either because they are not knowledgeable enough, or because they are not powerful enough. Let's say a convert doesn't have any protectia, he doesn't have any powerful relatives or friends who would defend him. He's alone, he just converted from another nation, nobody's on his side. And an orphan also, he's young, he doesn't have a father, no one to protect him. So the Pasuk says, don't pervert judgment of people who it's easy to take advantage of. So that's the commandment. Do not pervert judgment of converts or orphans.
And pervert meaning?
Not judge them correctly, not judge them fairly, justly.
So judge them justly.
But this is a negative commandment. Don't pervert judgment of converts and orphans. But again, this is just something that is easy to do. So the Torah warns you specifically, but it would apply to any Jew. Any Jew you're not allowed to judge incorrectly. The next negative commandment is Lo tahbol beged almana. This is in the same pasuk, which means do not take as a collateral clothing of a widow. Now, what does it mean? We said there are 2 times a person may take collateral for the loan. One is at the time of the loan, when I'm giving you money, but as security, I'm going to take an object from you. Another one is the time comes to pay back the loan, and the borrower doesn't have money. So the lender then says, okay, you don't have money, but at least let me take some security. Now that you show that you cannot pay back, now I'm worried that maybe I'm not gonna get my money back, so let me take security. So what happens? The Beit Din sends the agent to the borrower, and the borrower brings out an object that he feels he doesn't need, that he can part with for in the meantime. So we're talking about this second kind of taking security. If a widow comes and says, here is my jewelry, please give me money, so that's permissible. But if she just borrows money and then when the time comes to pay back, she doesn't have money, so she asks for more time, and the lender says, okay, give me something as security, not allowed. In such a case, you're not allowed to take security from a widow.
So not just clothing then.
Yeah. Now, what is the reason for it? Why widow is special? One reason is that we know that a widow is considered someone who, just like orphan and a convert, someone who doesn't have so much protection because her husband died, that may not be well off, may not be able to support herself properly, because again her source of income died. So the Torah is extra careful that you should be, Torah commands you to be extra careful with poor people and people who are vulnerable. But there is another more important reason here, and that is because we learned last week that when you take this kind of security, you're supposed to return it every time the person needs it. And therefore, what's going to happen? The lender will have to visit the widow every time she needs the object, and then he takes something else. And then again he comes back, takes something else. And the widow is not married. She's a single woman living by herself. And all of a sudden this man is visiting her. Doesn't look good. So the Torah says, because of this, from a widow you're not allowed to take a security. First of all, it doesn't look good, and number two, it may lead to something improper.
Last time I think we learned that there is a difference between taking security in the beginning or at the end when it's allowed. So in this case with the widow at all cannot take it.
Second
The second
time. Second time.
When it's time to pay.
When it's time to pay back, yes. So again, we write, do not take security or a pledge from a widow. That's what we write.
Our memory is finishing, so it's gonna end in a minute.
In a minute. Okay. So let's continue. Do not take security from a widow. Next, on page 1062, we have two commandments for poor people. Number one is V'shachachta omer basadeh, and we also highlight in the same pasuk last words, lager leyatom v'lealmana yehiyeh, and we connect the two. This is a positive commandment. If you